So
Dwarf
in
podcast.
a reclaimed army or Thor, you still have the ability essentially to bash, which I did for years, like with the
Bashed for years
magics
was
and so,
that?
yeah, like
Oh,
Sam, you're literally Frodo right now.
he is the hero.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 61 of the Gollum's Gamers podcast, where today we are going to be discussing some of the changes to the new edition of MESBG that you might have missed, things that are flying a bit under the radar. And how they might affect your games in the new edition. So there won't be too much of like a structure to this one. We just have a list, and we're just going to run through, in an open format, what we think on, some of these more under the radar sort of changes. So for the Spotify listener tonight, I'm joined by Adam and Ali. As always, you can find us on Instagram and Spotify by following the links in the description down below. And please do remember to subscribe to us here on YouTube. Over 60% of everyone who watches isn't actually subscribed. So if you do enjoy all of the MESBG content that we make, then please do remember to subscribe. So, like I said, sort of an open discussion here. Was there, we have a list. Was there any standout ones that we wanted to kick things off with to get the conversation going? What do we think?
I mean, we can start at the top of the list that you sent us before the episode.
But it's in no particular order, Ali.
Lack of cavalry.
Lack of cavalry.
So this is one that I kind of noticed when I've just been list building. And
Ali came up with all of them for the record because,
I don't think I did. There's definitely a few on there I didn't put on. But, lack of cavalry. So last edition, pretty much every list, unless if you were a dwarf, you would always drop one or two cavalry models in or flies or stuff.
Yeah.
So many armies this edition don't actually have that option.
No.
As you're going through it, you're still all like in most of your sort of Gondor ones. Or
could we name some for the listeners?
What, that don't have that option?
Indeed.
I'm sure you could, Elliot.
Okay. Men of the West.
Yeah.
We don't have cavalry, right? No. Okay, sure.
Well, not in terms of knights and stuff.
Okay, sure, fine. Yeah.
So I'm not talking about obviously your hero cav, which you like a lot of armies can still
troops.
mount their heroes, but troops.
Yeah.
Like Dale don't, and they're considered one of the stronger lists at the moment in the UK anyway. The Muster of Isengard don't have Warg Riders in there. So there's quite a few sort of scattered around.
Yeah.
Even in the sort of list we've been rating quite highly, which makes scenario play a bit more interesting. Because it used to be you had the two, like the little squad of cav, which would run around and capture objectives. But a lot of armies don't have that option anymore. And so actually it may mean that those that do will do better at those scenarios, or at least it'll be an easier sort of transition for people to the new edition if you happen to have picked an army which can drop in two or three cav.
You've got a fairly sort of big advantage over. I guess it's also with like when you're choosing, if you don't have cav, like how can you get movement into your list? So like, does March become a lot more important? Some heroes lost March, like heroes like Irolas, paying the points for that captain rather than taking some other named hero suddenly becomes more important because you can't afford to not get, to the middle in whole ground at the same time as your opponent or something like that. So that becomes more valuable.
On the flip side as well, armies that were traditionally slow, like my beloved dwarves, now weirdly aren't as outpaced as they used to be. Because
you're talking about Airborne Reclaimed sort of more specific?
Yeah, basically, because it's the only really good dwarf list going and it doesn't have cap. But they're going, you're an inch slower than all the other armies, but you're often not having to deal with chasing down enemy cav and having to catch them. And so it's a more manageable experience. And it's similar for goblins as well and stuff like that. If anything, got faster because Balrogs now move 8. But yeah, it's one of the things that I've observed, and I'm not quite sure how much impact it's having or will have, but
yeah,
definitely I didn't pick up on it straight away.
Yeah, with the scenarios as well. sort of, and the potential new ones coming in as well. I wonder. I mean, we do have Vince here who literally used a muster of Isengard list with no cavalry. Did you find it a hindrance in your gameplay at this most recent event?
I'd actually say no, because the way I built the list was that my plan was to actually keep moving from the beginning. So traditionally in Isengard lists, you probably try and max out the crossbows, which would make you very static. So I was kind of wary of the fact that, they don't have cav, and, a lot of armies also don't have access to cav. So just to make use of that new environment, just to kind of be set on moving from the beginning. So I was
use that
where I wanted to be. Yeah. The free march, making use of the free march. Although that doesn't come in for a third of the scenarios, it was still helpful, and running a kind of pure non-shooting infantry army, I think.
Did you find
quite enjoyed that?
It forced you to plan further ahead?
Yeah. And not running crossbows allowed me to, just go for it and not try and, engage in a shooting war and just be like, what, from turn one, I'm just going to be in your face.
Yeah.
Adam, you were at a tournament recently, weren't you? Did you see that sort of impact in any of your games or anything?
I mean, I ran Army of Thrall. So
I was going to say, what were you running?
I wanted to see if it is as mid as people think it is. I mean, it's just as slow as it was. However, I really like Dwarf Kings. So you're taking a fight 6 marcher now. So even if he's burnt his might to march to the middle,
yeah,
he's still surviving, right? He's defense 8, he's got 2 fate, he just sits there. So yeah, I think if anything, I mean, Army of Thrall arguably is faster, because
dwarves have somehow just upped their move.
Well, if everyone else is getting slower, which is the point I was making, is if everyone else gets slower and you haven't, then relatively you're not actually
these dwarves are sort of.
And then Erebor Reclaim, the fact that they can charge into combat, that's so big.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So everyone's a bit slower, apart from those armies which aren't.
So it makes those feel faster. Sure.
So that's a good segue into what's actually gotten faster, to the Warriors of the Dead.
Yes. What great segue, Vince. You're doing my job for me.
Big move 8.
Out of a job.
Yeah. What I love about this is
big move.
I was going to say, before we did the top armies and stuff like that, Elliot genuinely was like, "What is there much point taking Army of the Dead in the Defenders of the Pelennor?"
Wasn't that on a pod?
I can't remember if it was on a pod or like if it's, but it was like Elliot the move 8. So it proves how much people didn't realise.
Yeah, I do remember that I was speaking to you, but I thought it was on a pod. Maybe the viewers, if anyone remembers when that was, but. Yeah, I had no idea. I just, I hadn't looked at everything in all the books yet, right? And I just didn't know. So.
Yeah, it's easy just to skim through and be like, "Where's the Dead?
Where's the Dead? Oh, they're fight 3, or they're D8.
Yeah, fight 3.
Sure, fine. Okay, move on.
And how fast are the Cav?
But the movement 8.
Yeah, the Cav are 12.
Okay. They move 12,
And the King also, the King being 8 is also nice as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Warriors. So obviously they're still really expensive, but like in that Defenders of the Pelennor list, I do wonder what the optimal points level is that you can run like a fair amount of them backed up by fight 4 with like good heroes. Like it's at least 800, but I've done some playing around and it does get a little bit tricky just with warbands and things. Because only there
you can take some very interesting heroes in that list, like King Irolas, Legolas,
more just like
all the lasses.
What the heroes can like lead troops wise, that's a little bit.
Can Legolas lead Army of the Dead in that?
So he can only lead Army of the Dead.
Yeah, so the 3 hunters are Army of the Dead.
And if you want to kind of, the way to get the numbers up is to take the Minas Tirith troops, but they can only be led by like Irolas, Captains Minas Tirith, and Gandalf. So you could take like 12 Minas Tirith with Irolas, but then do you take a captain or do you go Gandalf? If you go Gandalf, then you don't really have the points for like another big hero.
Captain's solid.
So it's interesting. Yeah. So you go captain and then like maybe Leggy. And
bearing in mind these captains, which this isn't on our list, but I think a lot of people haven't realised, like Minister of Captains of that are now like
Some captains are pretty. Yeah.
I'll fight 5, and so they're actually quite
The
solid.
good, the bad captain.
Yeah.
Well,
Like
yeah.
especially
Good
Minister of
amazing.
one,
Yeah.
is fight 5, D7 with shield wall. So he's like hard to take down, and
He's
he
strength
will
5 though. I don't
no.
think so.
But
Yeah,
you know
how
who
many
it
points is he?
is? 60, I think.
60.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because
well, yeah.
that's another thing. I'm a really big fan of the Urukai captains. I
Yeah.
think they're great for their points, and yeah, the Minnesota captain sounds like it's in that kind of ballpark. It's not strength 5,
It's
but
getting the
5
fight
cheaper.
5, which
Any
really makes a
D7
difference.
hero,
Yeah.
any D7 hero, in that kind of price range, I really rate because they just do a lot of work in the line.
Yeah.
Games Workshop doing a make captains great again Trump sort of
I do have a segue though off of that,
Oh.
which is the one downside is you can't really mount your captains anymore. But
we're getting into the mounted heroes.
But would you want to? Is another question.
Well, you can mount your elf captain for the low cost of 30 points.
yeah, it's not just obviously elf captains and like captains generally, but often I am looking at lists now and going, you know what, is it worth it for 20 points or
to mount?
To mount
this is so Vince, because I was saying that I think like, you know, what would be your view on the mounting heroes discussion we were having?
So I think 20 points is still worth it, well worth it for the really expensive heroes. I found that once I managed to dismount a hero with Sorcerer's Blast, for example, I just considered that threat neutralized. Like a hero on foot, I just don't think does enough, which is why people probably complaining in the last edition saying that 10 points is like pretty much an auto take. I think what they should have done was made
Scale
horses
it.
different prices for different heroes. Because 20 points is well worth it for someone like Elessar, but then 20 points for like an elf captain is like, well.
So I think if you're a free attack hero, then 20 points for a horse is worthwhile. I think as soon as you get down to 2 attacks or 1 attack, it becomes
The sort of argument that I'm thinking though is like if you're a 3 attack hero, say someone like a Sealdor. Let's say like a Sealdor's a little bit of a unique situation because you might.
Well, he may dismount himself, so yeah.
Yeah,
so
like,
probably terrible example.
Let's say you're Gil-galad. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Let's say you're Gil-galad. Like, I think if you're just a normal strength 4 hero with no +1 to wound or anything, like you still need the extra attacks, I think, to guarantee that you're going to kill.
Okay.
But if you're +1 to wound, but if you're +1 to wound,
you need the horse.
You're 3 attacks with a spear support and a banner, so you're 5 dice to win the fight. If you're an elf lord or something, or you have any other kind of reroll, you're maybe 6 dice, so 5 or 6 dice to win a fight. And then if you're say +1 to wound or something, or you're strength 5, maybe, you know, you're still killing fairly reliably, and you don't have to worry about trying to call moves to get the charge and things. So I think it's now more of a choice on like.
So the more obvious, I think, bit is like when you look at Azog's Hunters, and like you used to just mount Yasnik, you can't actually even mount Narzag anymore, Thimble and stuff like that. And suddenly you're there going, oh, that's actually like 60 points if I want to mount all my heroes. That's like another 7 or 8 models. It's not an insignificant amount, whereas previously it was just 3 or 4 for like the threat multiplier, which it hurts your arm, especially if you're either an elite army and you're struggling to fit troops in, or if you're like wanting to hoard out. It makes that difference.
Yeah, I just think like you know, for a normal strength 4 hero, like if you're then only wounding on 3 strength 4 dice, that is not enough. So like that's those are the situations where you really need it to kind of help with the damage output. But if you've got any kind of +1 to wound sort of modifier, or you can 2-hand, or you're maybe strength 5 or something like that, I just think if you've got 2 of these heroes say in your army and you're going to pay 40 points for those horses, I think you can still get pretty good damage output. And you don't have to worry about losing those horses. And you know, 40 points is a lot to spend elsewhere in your army. And you can still get pretty good value out of those heroes. And they can, you know, reliably kill troops every turn, I think, still, if you're, say, +1 to wound or something like that.
That's
And
a good
other reasons, there are other reasons not to mount though. So casters, I know we'll get onto casters later, but in general, I think this edition is going to be monsters and big heroes are going to really take a resurgence. And if you want to take out monsters, then it actually helps being on a smaller base sometimes, such that
that's another great. Yeah.
You can get more guys in there. So, for example, say you've got dwarf heroes. I've got no problem thinking, okay, I can easily get 2 dwarf heroes into this monster or 3 dwarf heroes into this monster to try and kill it.
Yeah.
Whereas if something's mounted, when there are line fights, sometimes with spear supports and etc., everyone has a dummy base to try and see if it fits, and sometimes it just doesn't. So I think early game you definitely want the horses because you want the tactical flexibility.
Yeah.
But as we go into the mid and late game, maybe late game again as well, but mid game I actually think sometimes it's better to be on foot.
I also think people are going to have to learn how to use heroes on foot. There's a lot of stuff I observed sort of at the weekend event where people treated a hero on foot like they were a hero who was mounted. So they'd be like, "Oh, cool, I'll do heroic combats and stuff like this."
Yeah.
And then they fluff their to wound rolls or whatever it was, and they like a lot of people are like, "Oh, he's rubbish," and it's like, no, it's just you can't just charge in one click kill things. Model on foot.
That's what like it isn't going to be the same as charging in with 8 dice to wound, but like just I think with some heroes you can still get a fairly-ish kind of comparable damage output without having to invest the 20 or 40 points if you're doing it for 2 heroes in LA.
So one example actually, and I mean I'm going to keep bringing up dwarves, but so in Elven Reclaimed or Army of Thor, you still have the ability essentially to bash, which I did for years, like with the
for years was that.
Yeah, like, but it's there going, you can get that benefit by like using these support models, which because you're, as Adam said, you're on infantry, you can actually get 2 quite easily into like an enemy model. You've got a 50-50 chance of knocking the guy to the floor normally a little bit higher. And then suddenly you're doubling your strikes and you've got this almost the same like benefit anyway.
Yeah.
So whereas I think people got spoiled with easy tactics of last edition going, oh, if I just charge my mega hero into that model on foot, as long as I don't fluff my dice, they shall die.
Yeah, knock pros, and I will do 4 wounds. Yeah.
Whereas it's there going, no, you may not kill them in 1 turn. It may take 2 turns or 3 turns, or you may have to be a bit smarter, which I think is if you can learn to use those tricks on how to maximize your heroes on foot, then the investment of 20 points on a horse is actually quite high.
I think another thing that sort of ties into this as well is like the changes to 2-handing. So if you're a hero with a hand and a half weapon, or even just a 2-handed weapon, if you say 3 attacks on foot, obviously not every hero is, but let's say 3 attacks on foot, you've got a banner and a spear support. You've got 5 or so dice where you're fishing for a 6. If you have another model actually in the combat, maybe do have those 6 dice, and then you're +1 on your hero's 3 dice. Like that's actually a really good sort of change where you can fairly reliably, get that 6 and then you're +1.
Yeah, so
good.
But essentially, horses are still good on the right heroes. It's just it's there going. It's not going to be worth it on every hero in the same way. So,
I just think I think it can see a lot more play than it did last edition and have much more success.
Yeah,
I think because like before it was just let's just take it. Like, why would you not for 10 points?
Yeah.
So when I see a mounted hero, I'm not necessarily scared of the damage output. I'm more scared of the threat of a hero combat. So
is Vince frozen for anyone else?
If Vince is lagging out, Vince, you're lagging out.
Which is why I think they're just much easier to kind of deal with.
Right, we don't know what's easier to deal with. But it's easier to deal with.
Start that again, Vince. We have you back.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
So, what was I saying? I'm not necessarily afraid of the damage output from a mounted hero.
Yeah.
It's more the threat of a heroic combat. I just feel like people are less likely to call one on foot because, as you said, it's less reliable. So I'm not worrying about that as much, especially with the movement and the shenanigans you can do.
Yeah, there are
That
more
I think
like
that's where the real power comes from. It's the heroic combat. So once they're on foot, I'm kind of like feeling a little bit more relaxed.
there are more like plays that you
I
can
just don't.
do in a single turn just because of the
Yeah,
amount of board that you can
So,
cover.
so I would counter going the use of a heroic combat changes when you're on foot to a positional
oh yeah, so
advantage
you have to.
as
It's not
opposed
as
to
like
just a
it's not straightforward as you go
threat
into two
advantage.
guys and then
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead, you would get a hero on a flank with 2 or 3 other guys.
yeah,
Throughout combat, then you sweep round and you take on their spearmen and stuff like that to
Yeah.
then give you an advantage in the fights. Whereas previously it was, if I charge big scary man in here, heroic combat, you're going to have to strike with this person if you've slightly
Yeah.
misdeployed, because otherwise I'll come in and kill you.
Yeah.
Cool. Right.
Where do you want to go next, Ali? I feel something on the tip of your tongue. Use the list.
Well, we can go on to weaker battle lines
Go on, Ali.
because it's sort of vaguely related. So, I mean, this one a lot of people may have probably already twigged, but because a lot of armies don't have spears and shields options on their models anymore, and also a lot of the armies currently in the game seem to be fairly low defense. So, with a couple of exceptions being like Minas Tirith, and maybe if you go for a Man and Orc Horde or Dwarves,
Yeah.
nearly at least 50% of an enemy battle line or your battle line is going to be D5 or lower now, which means you're a lot flimsier than where it used to be just D6 followed by D6, unless if you had
like a lot less shields as well, which obviously is part of what plays into the D6, but like not as many models shielding to live forever, like a lot more just one dices once you get into that backline.
Yeah, because actually, that's a good point. When you lose your shields in the front ranks,
then
where they normally are, you don't have the late game shield option. So I noticed in a couple of tournaments that I've sort of been to so far, like lines crumble quicker. They're nowhere near as resilient, with obviously a few exceptions, and that is despite, as we mentioned, not having mounted heroes or all of this other stuff. Like troops will just kill more than they used to. You don't need that strength 4.
It's also what's also gonna sort of kill more is like shooting as well. Like it's another feather in the shooting cap for this edition.
I think that's why Dale and like elves.
Like strength 3.
So scary. So that strength 3 is just ripping through.
I thought, So we were talking about Army of the White Hand before we started recording. And I thought that list had the Urukai bows, does it not? The scout bows, I thought, and their strength 3.
Can do, yeah.
They do, yeah, but you don't
it does.
many of them. Yeah, okay.
Didn't slide to you.
I just thought that'd be a way to get like some, a fair amount of strength 3 bows in there. I thought it'd be pretty good, but
yeah.
There are a lot more points than the Wildman.
They're a lot more, yeah, sure. So
they're 9 points, I think.
Sounds
Wildman with bows are like 6.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Wildmen with bows are the new trackers.
But yeah, just like there's more D5 around, so strength 3 bows. Like you can get like a Last Alliance list at like 750 with like 13 elf bows. Like that is just gonna,
Yeah. So weaker battle lines, no shields, meaning they crumble faster. So
Adam or Vince, in your recent tournament excursions, did you find any relevance to that in your games?
Yeah, I did actually, because I took Grimhammers. Obviously, only take a third now. 2 things to say about the Grimhammers. Number 1, the fact they have to double hand actually wasn't as impactful as I thought. Actually, double handing with them is pretty good because what I did was it saved me taking the strength 4 upgrade because you're essentially pseudo strength 5. And yes, you often lose fights now, even though you've got a 6-inch banner. However, because of your D7, you can take it a little bit better than most armies. You can take losing some fights. So it wasn't as bad as I thought. And then what's really good is sort of late game, when people have their low defense exposed, a lot of D5 comes up. Then you've got throwing weapons. And throwing weapons into D5 late game is superb. You create these avenues and these movement opportunities that you wouldn't have otherwise had. So yeah, the point about lower defense is a real thing. People do have lower defense now. Shields aren't available to take on every model like they pretty much were. Spears, you can't take them now with many backline things like archers. So archers are now having this odd role of, well, I say odd, I mean historically accurate role of being on the flanks or being in little pockets of 3 down little avenues. Whereas in the game previously, they would just be the background of spears. It was like a no-brainer. So I think people are having to play a little bit differently now and plan differently when they're building armies.
Weaker battle lines, baby. Heard it here first. Under the radar change in the new edition of MESBG. I'm sure everyone ran into it. Go on, Vince.
Yeah, that's why I really love the Urukao shields. I think you have to include them. D6 is actually quite rare now, and a lot of armies aren't bringing strength 4 necessarily. Strength 3 is even more common than it was last edition. Bringing that D6, you'll be grinding out a lot of armies.
Yeah, you can have a lot more staying power. Yeah.
Very useful. I found it against elves, it just caused like a lot of problems against elves because they're not. I know they can double hand, but then they're less likely to win fights, and Uruk-hai just knocks you back in strength 4
as well.
So the Uruk-hai shields were really good.
As soon as you're needing 6s to wound an opponent, you really feel it make a difference. Like in that, how
it's a huge difference.
Because I think that's why I did actually so well with Army of Gothmog, or whatever it's called these days, into the West against like the man armies, because I was just like, cool, like you can't kill me. I'm still strength 4, wounding you on 4s or 5s back usually. But yeah,
that's a good place. Where do you
should we go on to some of the war gear changes?
We can indeed. Where would you like to begin?
So, Elven Cloaks, -1 to shoot against them.
Super good. Don't Mirkwood Rangers have them?
Yeah. And Mirkwood Rangers also have sharpshooters.
Yes.
So they're excellent at sniping horses and also not getting shot back. So at my event...
This is another reason why horses are going to be less common now. Because sharpshooter is reasonably common.
And imagine you take, 40 points. I keep saying 40 points, but it'd be very common before for people to mount 2 heroes in a list if you had that option to. If you lose those mounts and you're just 40 points down, that's like sucks.
10%. Well, 5 to 10% of your list at some point.
It's a problem. Yeah.
But the -1 to hit I completely overlooked on Elven Cloaks.
It's really
partly because I don't use elves, so why would I?
Well, I played against a friend of mine's. He had Halls of Thranduil before the new edition. It's all I would play. It's all he would use when I'd play against him. And now, obviously, he's using it loads because they're good. And he was saying, they've now got OP Elven Cloaks. And we were talking about whether it was in an effort to make Mirkwood Rangers more viable, which obviously it's just a change to Elven Cloaks across the board.
We all want a full shooting army to be.
Does it make them? But how much more viable does it make them? Is it in a Halls of Thranduil list? We were talking about specifically. Obviously, Mirkwood Rangers is still, but would you take a Mirkwood Ranger or 2 in a Halls of Thranduil list?
But I think the more relevant one is actually in a Lothlorien list, taking just Wood Elves. Because actually suddenly they're winning shooting wars because the Elven Cloaks generally either you're hitting them worse or you can't actually see them at all. So it actually gives a massive,
isn't it? It's still within 6 like it was before.
So it gives actually a massive advantage.
Shout out Luke Hilda.
Which will come on to some other stuff I realised when Luke was using this Lothlorien on the weekend.
The Hilda
but it really in a era where we're on about strength 3 shooting's doing well, if your strength 3 shooting can't be shot by the other guys,
then, no shooting.
Well done. Then you're probably going to win that war.
What are you building there, Adam? I'm interested.
Well, all this talk about how horses are so not that great. I'm building wolf on horse.
Mega lemon from you, Adam. You running a usurpers of Edoras list in the foreseeable future?
I might be.
Check this man out. Someone got the starter set.
Yeah, but I'll be taking wolf on foot.
Oh, there you go. Get those 5 dice, baby. Shout out, Adam. Did you have any other comments on Elven Cloaks, Ali?
Not really.
That about it? No, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that'll do for
I'm
now.
just seeing, you know, I just want to make sure your appetite has been met.
Yeah.
Lothlorien also get a buff, don't they? They get reroll ones to hit if they've got an Elven Cloak and they can't be seen.
Yes.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's their army bonus. Their second army bonus.
Oh, it's an army bonus. Oh, sorry. Who's that?
Lothlorien.
A lot.
Lothlorien. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I'll be honest.
It's so low key, but all these little things they do add up.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going shooting, you're hitting on 3+, you're not moving, you can't be shot back.
Yeah,
that's actually
re-rolling ones to hit.
Yeah, ridiculous.
That's actually silly nervous.
You have to have terrain though for this to work.
Yeah, so if you're in Australia, you'll be screwed because they don't have much terrain in Australia.
No, they don't.
But
a lack of terrain on boards,
as we've seen on their recent tournament boards.
Adam, keep quiet, or you get yourself in trouble.
I'm not saying
yeah, I'll be honest. I know such little about Lothlorien. It's not a list I have looked at in like.
Would you like some education, Elliot?
I have just set you up wonderfully there, haven't I, Ali? But
so you know how no one took Galadriel's mirror, like last edition, because just
I actually played against someone at my local club who just took Galadriel's mirror.
You know, if someone was going to a competitive tournament, they didn't take Galadriel's mirror because it was just like 25 points. You didn't really need to spend a regenning fate.
Sure.
Well, they took Guy
yeah. Oh yeah, the bird bath. Whereas now, if you don't take Galadriel's mirror and Lothlorien, I think you're a numpty.
Oh shit! Hot take.
Because it still gives you your fate back, but it gives you now +1 to your priority dice rolls. Which, bearing in mind with the way the priority changes, means that you're always going to have an advantage over your opponent pretty much on dictating who goes first or second.
So when you say +1 to your priority rolls, so it's just because you have the mirror in your list, you get +1.
No.
No, you have to be in base contact, which Galadriel will be most of the time.
So if she's in base contact, then you can just add 1 to your roll.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you roll a 2, you can make it a 3.
I understand how the addition works. I didn't know what the condition was to allow that to happen.
But yeah, which it makes a huge difference. Like it's like basically having a foresight point every turn. For, like if people want to relate it back to Elrond, and because it is really important deciding who goes first or second, and you actually get to choose that now. Like it's a bargain for 25 points, and you still get all your fate back on her and Celeborn, so they're actually still ridiculously hard to kill.
I thought it was 1, or was it?
No, it's all the fate.
It was.
That's changed as well. Okay, sure. It was 1.
I thought it was always all the fate.
I thought it was 1.
Let me double check this before I embarrass myself on the internet for the second time.
You know what? Doesn't even matter. It's history. It's gone. It's gone. Doesn't matter, mate. Move on.
I still have all the old rule books on my phone. Am I the only one?
Get rid of them.
Why? I wouldn't be able to research this lemon rule, Adam.
No, just move on.
If I were to get rid of... I'm not moving on from Defense in the North. Are you fucking crazy?
It's like looking at your ex's photos, isn't it?
So they may restore their fate points, basically, so it doesn't limit it.
Is that what it said before?
I'm pretty sure it is what it said before, but it's what it says now, which is an important thing.
So you were looking up the old rule and you looked at the new one?
No, I was always looking up the new one, just to double check, like you did that. But yeah, because Galadriel went down slightly by points as well, but she's great.
Was she 130 before?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was the caster.
On 20 or something.
Anyway, that's old rules, Elliot, and we've decided.
Sorry, the lines between the real world and that's right.
So anyway, moving on along in Lothlorien, this is the most I've ever talked about elves, I've realised, in a sort of positive light.
You have been,
you know how Celeborn sucks?
Well,
Turns out he doesn't suck.
Why not, Ali? Tell us, enlighten us and our viewers.
Well, he's a bloody good caster.
I was thinking, I was looking at his spells. I was like, he didn't have all these spells before, and he gets a 3-point rule per turn.
Yeah, so I mean, he's got Transfix on a 3+, which is still pretty tasty, especially when you've got monsters and big heroes running around. If you're combining him with Galadriel, then you both should be shutting down like the big scary threats. Or of Dismay, which is slightly different, obviously -1 courage test within 6 inches to your enemy. Enchanted Blade. The real cool one though, and I don't know if anyone else has got this in the game yet, is Riving Vines, which
I don't think anyone
we,
else in the game has it.
I'm not sure if they do yet.
I think
Surely Radagast does.
I think the Necromancer has it.
Really?
What?
Unless I'm thinking of Raddy. I might be thinking of Raddy.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the
Does he?
rulebook.
But anyway,
I
we'll,
just
we'll have a
totally
look that up.
everyone's laughing right now.
Yeah, well,
Everyone's scrambling for their rulebook.
The Necromancer doesn't have it. Let's move on.
yeah. We did talk about this when we were having the leaks come out, but having a 6-inch basically bubble of denial with 3 inches going either way.
Raddy
like-
has it.
Yeah. Difficult terrain it really screws things up. So one thing that I know Luke Hilder did to Stephen Denby. So Denby did Elven Reclaimed versus LaFleur. Did his heroic march. It's like, haha, I shall like charge and move super far. And then basically Luke went, boop. That's difficult terrain to go through there. You're back down to 4-inch move.
But it is only it's from where Celeborn is, right? So it's like you can't place it. It's like
place a 25mm vine marker wholly within 3 inches of the caster. So you can place it,
I see.
but it's a limited sort of distance. But it's still enough to like stop charges. Those mounted heroes that we were just on about, suddenly like won't be getting their charge bonuses and things like that.
Pulled a march.
Yeah,
and Luke went first, so he went. Oh, okay. I'll then put it there
because he won priority.
Yeah.
With
the mirror.
Yeah.
That's good. It's really good. That's a good move.
So, what is it about Celeborn that everyone? What has all the discourse been about him being bad?
Well, it's just everyone's like he's unarmed and like he used to be more of a combat hero.
Yeah.
I mean, whereas now he's not. So he's basically alternate Galadriel, but when you've got already have Galadriel, having 2 casters in the list, it's like living in last edition. It's like you get to just shut stuff down and like.
There's more than that actually as well. This is one of must be only 2 or 3 armies in the game that can now do compel transfix.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
It's the only good army I think that can do it.
Costing you a lot more resources than it did before. Before you just spend one point at will with the Witch King and you re-roll it with the Crown. Oh, come here, you die.
But
now you need 2 casters.
Thing is, though, them combined is what, only 150 points?
I mean, if you're taking the mirror, that's
250 points, yeah.
275 points.
No, 100, yeah. Yeah, I meant 250. But, and like, if you think most other lists who are getting a caster, it's going to be Saruman or Gandalf or like the Witch King, like in his buffed up form, which for that one caster, you're only paying sometimes not even 50 points less, but so you're getting double. You're getting 50% free. Let's say buy one get one 50% off.
Somehow, in some roundabout way, come to the fact that it's better. Let's just leave it. Let's agree on that. Yeah.
I think that's quite fitting because Celeborn in the movies was a bit sort of buy one get one half price, isn't he?
Yeah, he's sort of there, but not.
Kind of just turns up. He has this little look about him, and then you don't ever see him again.
So it feels like we're touching on the topic of is magic still good?
Well, to be fair, we didn't miss one amazing thing about Celeborn actually.
Probably the best rule.
Yeah, which is the +1 to wound bubble.
Yeah,
like it's fantastic. It's
going to be Thranduil or something. He's got fucking Aura of Dismay, even though it's not the same.
He's what happened to Magic Thranduil. He just actually became Celeborn.
Yeah, because Thranduil lost all his magic and he went, there you go, Celeborn. Oh.
Yeah, so like you know how we're on about the strength 3 elves struggle to go through D6 shield guys. Well, they don't if they're within 3 inches of Celeborn and get +1 to wound, which I don't think we need to explain why that's really good so much, but it just is.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people will be playing that slightly wrongly, though. I think a lot of people only take that on the Wood Elves
because it's Lothlorien.
Because it's Lothlorien, but because it's in keywords, because it's a bold lettering, it does affect anything with bold Lothlorien elves, Lothlorien warriors. So there is an argument to still take Galadriel, even though they don't have the Elven Cloaks.
They have D6 front rank.
Yeah, that's a pretty
They could take D6 back rank as well.
Yeah.
You could just use Wood Elves on the sides with bows.
I think Wood Elf Lothlorien may low key become a pretty good choice once you start getting over 700 points.
Were you about to say meta? Where have I heard that before? Lothlorien being meta?
I still lose to dwarves.
Was shit,
But yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So
what were you going on
and
to,
another
Vince?
lovely segue.
Which I ruined.
Yeah, so one of the topics we were going to discuss is Magic actually still good? Because I think when the new edition came out, a lot of people were saying that Magic got nerfed really hard,
and things of that.
And we're covering Magic in glory, it seems. So the question is, has it been nerfed? Is it still good?
It's been nerfed, and weirdly, it's also more important than it used to be. Because of where, touching on, you've got big heroes running around and monsters, and Magic is still the answer to them, and they've gotten better. So it's maybe less reliable, but it's still just as effective as it used to be, really, at like protecting your army from.
You might see less of it.
Yeah.
But, does that mean it's worse when you have it?
No, less armies have
access
to it.
I think,
but it's the two most recent GVHL hundreds that we've had. So my one and then the one up in I think it was Middlesbrough. Like both were one with armies which had a spellcaster, whether it was the Witch King or Saruman. If Magic was generally terrible, then I'm not saying that's the only thing they do, but I don't think those armies would have necessarily won.
Are people saying Magic's terrible?
Wow. They were screaming it. They were screaming its death like at the start of the edition.
Yeah, we might have said that on a podcast at some point. I don't know.
You probably did. You like being dramatic.
Yeah, I think we all kind of.
Yeah,
I think that was the kind of initial reaction.
Yeah,
we all kind of looked at it and be like, it's taken a lot of hits, but actually, when it comes to playing actual games, the Magic is coming in more clutch because as Ali said, there are more valuable targets out there.
Yeah, more big things you want to shut down, and
you
can't just drop in a 75-point wraith or something now and tick that box and have really good magic casting. But when you do take it, it's still equally as effective, I think. Are there any other sort of of the new spells and things like that? Any changes to things that we think are a little bit under the radar? With
I think Curse is a little bit more common, isn't it?
Don't know.
More common, or
I think Saruman's got it now because I played twice on the weekend and people were just making me do -1 on Thrall and Curse with Saruman. I was like, oh man,
has it changed?
Lose my one will point.
Does it change in how it works?
Well, no, you know how Saruman's got the rule that you choose
the
a hero.
Cast,
Saruman's
not cast to resist.
To be fair,
-1 to resist and Curse for that is excellent because obviously you're going to touch on the fact that he's going to go for probably the opponent's biggest hero. Most armies will take one big hero. Thrall doesn't give much output, but because of leader points and he's normally quite sturdy, if you remove that one fate, he's D9, but you can slip a wound through. Yeah. So I think Curse is
really good against Thrall, actually, to be fair.
It's terrible though against Lothlorien.
Yeah, it's terrible against Loth.
So
terrible against Lothlorien.
Another thing that we were going to mention about was Paralyze. I think Adam, you had a note on.
Oh yeah, the one dicing Paralyze is now. It's gone up, sort of 17%, right? So it's gone from more than that, 32%. So it's gone from a 4 up to now 3 up. So you can one dice it quite comfortably. Most armies who take Rise of the Witch King or Host of the Witch King, whatever it's called, will probably take 2 Barrow Wights. And if you do, you're just one dicing from each of them. And if the opponent's got lots of big heroes,
3 up just every turn is super nice. But it's
just
exhausting now, though, you were saying as well. So that's kind of
it is exhaustion, but I prefer that.
When it
There's
goes
also
off,
not much Sap Will going around, is what I was there used to be. So actually, one thing that a lot of people missed is Blinding Light isn't exhaustion anymore, and often actually heroes it's cast on a 4+ as well. So it's another like quiver in the shooting army's strength at the start of the edition is even if you are facing blinding light, it's going to only be 50% of the time reliably anyway.
Another thing that you were saying as well, Adam, or what you were saying about the Barrow Whites, is Spectral Walk, I think is the change to that, just like a little bit under the radar. So like, I think I looked in the rulebooks earlier, I think the only models that have it are obviously all the Army of the Dead stuff, Barrow Whites, and the Spectres. So you ignore all difficult terrain, and you count as rolling a 6 on all like jump, climb tests and things. So like you can really kind of get into interesting places with to objectives.
Yeah, that's big.
Like that's actually a little
bit. On the Move 8 stuff.
Especially on the Move 8 stuff. Now, do we think that Matt's event is just going to be ruled by Army of the Dead? I'm hoping he's going to like have thought of that and gone, how can I make it that that's not going to be the case? Because otherwise it's going to be so bad.
I mean, it could be fine. Like, who knows?
Will it though? When everyone just turns up with Army of the Dead?
It'll be Army of the Dead versus Watching the Water, and like who wins in that matchup? We don't know. I sold
my Army of the Dead, so that's why I don't want it to be like that.
Here's the counter meta. If you're going to go to, I don't know what it's called, like Lord of the Bubbles or whatever. Just for clarification, at this event there'll be one water feature on every single board.
Plugging your brother's event, but you don't know the name.
Well, because everyone just calls it Bubbles.
Everyone does call it Bubbles.
But if you take Elrond or what the list where you can like explode water features,
Rivendell.
But no, whichever ones he goes in and stuff like that. Like there's a slight potential counter meta. Or you could do what I think Jasmine did last year, where she took a bunch of specters who have spectral walks and started trying to drag people into the deep water so they would drown. But
drowning in a friendly game of MESBG. Here we go.
Yeah, don't worry, they weren't trying to drown themselves intentionally.
I see you, Ali. Where do we want to go from here?
Well, we've briefly mentioned Saruman. Should we mention his best mate?
Oh, indeed.
Who stabbed him in the back. Spoilers.
Vincent's perked up. Here we go. We're on to something.
I just can't get over how good Grima is now.
Explain for the Spotify listeners for us, Vince. Lay it out.
Well, he's just like he was last edition, except he's way better because you can't stop him.
Yeah.
And he's just so good at just winning these scenarios. He might actually be a bit too good.
So, just explain the main differences. He can now essentially walk through enemy troops.
So it's like he's got the ring on permanently, and you've always got control of him, and you can't touch him. Like you can't charge him, you can't stop him, you can't trap him in, you can't kill him unless you've got magic. He's incredible for 25 points. He can literally win you the game by himself. He just completely changes the game when you've got him on your side. Like just for objectives, for like destroy the supplies. If you want a supply, you've got it. Like there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Recon.
Recon.
You not only just get one model off the board, you get a hero off the board as well.
Yeah, you get a hero off the board as well, and then it's just
and then fog as well. You just protect him and then put him on the terrain piece.
And again, because there aren't that many ring race and cheap casters running around who used to be able to just black dart him, if you don't have one of those, which 80%,
you cannot charge him, you cannot shoot him, you cannot box him in, so he can literally go wherever he wants. You can't do anything about it unless you kill him with magic. That's the only way.
Or you've killed Saruman, that guy who's going to be avoiding combat.
So if you kill Saruman, what happens?
You've lost the game probably anyway.
Sure. What happens to Grima, who's on your piece?
You can then kill him. He's basically revealed.
Okay, sure, fine.
And also the only other way that you use to get rid of him is because if you break the enemy army, maybe flees. But because a lot of those armies will only start taking courage tests and count being broken after 66% now.
So, what list can you take him in? Can you take him in every list that Saruman's in?
Yes. Muster of Isengard and Army.
There's two lists. So Muster of Isengard, which breaks at 66 or 67, and then Army of the White Hand, which breaks at 50. But because Saruman has a 12-inch stand fast that affects heroes, that's kind of a moot point.
Yeah, he's just incredible for 25 points. You can Saruman, you might disagree that he's too expensive, whatever. But Grima well makes up for it.
Yeah.
Like Grima's probably worth about 50 points.
In the car, it'd be interesting if/when we do get new scenarios. If he will remain as good or get even better, or like maybe slightly worse. But at the moment, 25 points is a steal. I'll put it up with Galadriel's mirror as if you're taking those two heroes.
You'll put it up there with Galadriel's mirror.
No, but as in there'll be like 2 auto-include upgrades, as it were.
I think he's a little bit better than Galadriel's mirror.
Oh yeah, he's better than Galadriel's mirror.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
It's a thing of if you're taking that hero, you're taking that other thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because it's tool to add for not.
Like we didn't even talk about the little annoying things he can do, like destroy war machines. He can.
He can trap a hero. He can trap a model in their corner or by a bit of terrain if he really wants.
Yeah, exactly. He can do stuff like that. You can even put him like in front of a hero on foot. The lines clash, and you just block the way. He can't actually get into your line. Yeah. I did that a few times, and it's just like, well,
what dirty play that is, Vince.
Yeah, it's just there's so many little tricks you can do.
Game?
We'll ship you off to the colonies, like with moves like that.
Just get good, mate.
Spirit of the game right here, late is thriving.
Yeah.
So yeah, Grima's immense.
Grima OP, love it.
Yeah, definitely
OP. Was there any other heroes you wanted to touch on, Ali?
Well, I don't know. I didn't put this one in, but someone put King Elessar. But I can talk about how awesome he is.
Yeah, King Elessar.
Who did put down King Elessar? Was that you, Vince?
Yeah.
Did you play against King Elessar?
No, I didn't. But Dave Farmer was singing his praises, and
he did podium
to agree
with him.
So. I think King Elessar, like as we said, like big heroes do well. One, he's a hero that you can put on a horse, and he will be able to still insta kill things.
Yes.
His fights everyone with Elven Blade. He's getting the 3 might each turn, so he can do everything you want to do with that. But actually, it's quite hard to get him unhorsed because of where he's got Horse Lord and Free Fate.
Yeah.
It just means that he will actually stay as, when we were mentioning about mounted heroes, that really long range threat, and in theory, because he could call a heroic move heroic combat every turn, he still almost operates like a big scary hero of last edition. He's more resistant to magic than anyone else, really. Because he gets the 3/6 plus, he could do a heroic resolve.
Yeah, the 3/6, and he's got resistant to magic.
Yeah.
Like the armored horse as well. It's just like nice against shooting, with the horse lord and 3 fate as well. Like there's just lots of things that add up to him being really resilient.
Yeah, he's a lot of points, but he's a lot of value as well. Yeah.
And there's also like the lists that you take him in, like Men of the West, like the rule where he calls the +1 fight. Is it +1 fight and +1? No, it's just
+1 fight. But I think they're dominant 2 or something because the extra special one.
Yeah. So the list he's in, you're getting even more value out of taking him. Is that the only list you can take him in though? I guess Men of the West.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, at the moment.
No.
But he is what everyone would expect Aragon to be if you watch the films. Really,
he's your free marcher every turn. Like
he's one-man army who happens to bring a bit of an army with him.
Yeah. Oh, and OP Leggy turns up as well. Oh, right, that's actually a pretty good combo.
But no,
and obviously
he just sort of really sums up how big heroes can dominate the game now.
Yeah, I can't wait to run around with Elessar. It's going to be really fun.
That horse is worth the points.
Yeah, 25 points, but 25 points.
It is worth 25 points.
That's what it's armored.
Yeah. But it comes down to the whole thing we said. On some heroes, it's really worth it. On others, it's not.
It's not Yazneg.
Yeah.
Well, the Yazneg on a horse last edition was pretty nice if you win a fight.
Yeah, also illegal.
Oh no, fair play. I guess was there any more that we wanted to go over? I had a fun one to close us out, unless there was anything else that we wanted to go over.
No, did we go through everything on the list already?
Pretty much.
pretty much.
We didn't go through the troll brute.
That was the fun one.
Well, I was presuming that was the fun
That
one.
was the fun
Oh,
one. Okay,
sorry.
well, we will
Just
close
ruined
it
it.
out with a fun one then. Because I think like a lot of people have kind of there's been some conversation about the troll brute and things. Obviously, there's been the changes to war beasts and stuff. So it might not be so much an under the radar change, but more of like a unexpected change, or that people might think it's unexpected to be better. Because like I don't think many people thought, oh, I might consider using a troll brute this edition before the edition came out. So now it has the trample and it's 2 strength 10 hits now, which it wasn't before. I think it was just 1 strength 10, or it was 1 strength 8 or something, but it's 2 strength 10. So you're needing, a 3
got
up
2 feet.
2 dice. What did I say?
Well, it's got 2 strength 10 because it's got 2 stumpy legs.
Sure. Okay, fine.
Honestly, when I had
it's this weird like chopped off hands.
It just chops through everything. And yeah, I'm really considering getting one. They're really expensive from Forge World. But like it's still got the issue where it's fight 5 and something could just run into it and kill it. But like it's 4 wounds now. I think it was only 3 before.
I can't remember. That's last edition.
Yeah.
But actually, an interesting thing though that came up at Into the West when Ash faced one is because it's War Beast, it only suffers 1 wound when you shoot it with like a Del Blister.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not a monster.
Yeah. So it doesn't actually insta die to siege weapons like other monsters.
It's a large target though as well. So I guess if you are having to walk towards something,
it could get shot to death if you have enough bows. But
in the ways.
Another subtle difference about it is obviously there's the magic element. So you're probably going to talk about the magic, the fact that you can't compel it to run over its own guys. You can now compel or stop the commander, and what that does, like transfix, and what that does is it just ends up moving straight forwards. It doesn't pivot; it just goes straight.
You can still make it run over, but like it just goes straight forward.
You can avoid the damage.
Yeah. So no longer are Mumakil going, oh man, there's some white wizard over there. Fuck it, let's go for my own guys. Yeah. No longer are we doing that. It's just going right. Sod this, straightforward.
Yeah.
Not listening to dude up top. I'm just going. The other difference, which is really interesting, is obviously that you can stop them quite easily with you can't stop them as easily now because you need 2 models which have a combined strength of greater than 7.
That was another big thing. I
think
it's greater than
so when you tag them,
I don't know.
Sorry, say it again.
I thought it was greater than 6, or is it equal to the strength of the War Beast?
It has to be higher than a strength.
Oh, I thought it was equal to. I think it might be equal to or higher. I think.
Is it?
Yeah, unless
I think if it's even or less, then it can still trample. I'll double check that. But the one thing I was going to say, which is worse about the Troll Brute, is previously you could barge. So it could barge before and then like waddle a bit further. And it could also change direction because it was a movement. So you could move it and then it could turn and then move a bit more, and then turn and move a bit more.
Yeah.
Because it was just a movement, right? Now it has to go in a straight line and it can't barge. So any jammy barges that it used to do or being affected by heroic combat, so it would move again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do its like wacky thing. It can't do that anymore. It's just
it can only
movement phase, that's it.
It can only be affected now by the resources of the commander, right? The might.
Yeah. However, it's also in a list that gets free hero march every other turn.
That's what I was going to say is the other thing. So the commander can call a march, and then that will affect.
Yeah. Or it'll have Boffer on top. He's got 2 might.
Yeah. So what is the whole thing? So you can take it in Erebor Reclaimed.
Yeah, and he basically becomes the commander of a Troll Brute.
Sure.
Which has its own rules queries, which we won't go into, but because
bring up.
Well, basically, technically, when you're measuring his 3-inch rule, you measure from the commander, not the actual base of the War Beast. But then, because the base is so big, it means the 3 inches isn't really gonna touch anyone, which I think is an oversight more than anything, because that rule's kind of written to address models in Howders and stuff like that, as opposed to the War Beast model, Stumpy, whatever he's called.
I'm still trying to find the War Beast, the thing with the strength.
Yeah.
However, if the combined strength is equal to or less. Yeah, so
exactly. So it
No,
has
it's
to
gotta
be
be more.
8 or higher.
That is a really weird way of phrasing it, though, to be fair.
It's all equal, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah, sure.
So it's strength 7, so you need to be strength 8 or higher to stop it. So 2 Urukai or 3 elves.
Yeah, that's
Not
right.
even an elf and a dwarf.
Does it have the how the monsters can strike like the spear supports? That's not a thing?
It's not a monster.
There's a War Beast.
But yeah, so like
I had some guy on the weekend trying to convince me how good they were because you can barge with them and then go again. I was like, no.
You can heroic combat with them, can't you?
We've only got one.
No, I don't think so.
Is that covered in the whole thing as well?
Getting it back out.
It's a hero, but you've only got the 1 point of might, and you can't be. Doesn't it just say that you can't be affected like by other heroic actions? I think is what it says. So you literally.
I'd be surprised if you can heroic combat. To be fair,
so you've just got the 1 point of might. So like you can do it once, but you've got 1 point of might. So. Yeah.
Boffa has 2, but I don't remember.
Yeah, sure. And like, you can march. And
no, you can't. It literally says. It literally says the commander cannot contribute any of its characteristics, use might points to influence the dual roll or to wound rolls, or declare any heroic actions that would affect the combat.
Okay.
Cool.
So wait, you can't.
So it's literally moves and marches.
Yeah, moves. Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's just like I wouldn't have ever considered getting one previous edition unless it was literally just for fun. And now I think it's still sort of just for fun. But you could maybe do well with it at an event.
It's borderline, like it's a lot of points, so it's very hard to fit.
But I think if you run like a fairly competent like 800 point list with it and get like 40 models.
Yeah,
with, like,
but you're basically sacrificing something, which is fair enough to get it.
100%. But
and it's. I think it's going to be one of those models that's great when it works, but there'll be some games where it does absolutely nothing. And
something just runs into it and kills it, and now yeah. But I would love to get one and just
They're lovely models as well.
Yeah. So, any more comments or anything before we close one out?
Nope.
No. For the under the radar changes. Okay, so I think it's going to close this out. So let us know what your favorite unknown under the radar changes for the new edition. If there's any that we missed, let us know what you think. But
if we've missed a lot, they're under the radar changes.
They're so under the radar.
Yeah,
they didn't make it into this under the radar video. Sure. Okay, we'll leave that there. So that's going to close out. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching another episode of the Gollum's Gamers podcast.